I too want to extend my sympathies to Susan and to all the members of PARC that have come here today who have lost loved ones in fatal collisions on the road. And I suppose this is why I want to raise with the Department of Transport just a very simple question that I was at a very, I suppose it was very stark and a very shocking briefing last Thursday for the Love 30 campaign. There was a demonstration outside which was made up of so many different civil society groups and people, and we heard real stories of people whose lives have been destroyed by, both being injured themselves or a loved one or fatal casualties on the road. There was a commitment under the Road Traffic Act in 2024 in the last government that the default would be that all within urban areas and around schools and within housing estates that it would be a 30-kilometre rule, that's what it was going to be. There is concern amongst this group that there's going to be a rowing back at this and it's going to be issued through bylaws. I know from being a county councillor, bylaws, it's slow, it's cumbersome, it's complicated to bring through. And could we get a commitment that the default, the recommendations, that was from, there was a speed review expert group which was made up of members of the Department of Transport, members of the RSA, members of TFI, but there is this worry that this has been rolled back, and I'm just wondering, can we get a straight answer, is it or isn't it, please?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. So as you know, the speed limit review went to government and was approved by government in September of 2023. The first phase of that was introduced, which is the reduction of rural local roads from 80 kilometres down to 60 kilometres an hour, and that was done by way of national default through legislation in February of this year. The next phase of it, as you've outlined, is the change from 50 kilometres down to 30 kilometres an hour in built-up urban areas. The hope or the intention was initially to do that second phase in the same manner by way of national default. However, when we looked into this, it just wasn't possible to do that. The reason is that there is no definition in legislation of what a built-up urban area is. So it's not possible to effectively at the stroke of a pen change the default for all 50 kilometre hours in built-up urban areas down to 30 kilometres an hour. We effectively, I suppose, had two options when we were looking then at how to implement I suppose when I say we, the implementation group of the experts looking at this, there was two options in which to implement phase two. One was to look effectively then to, as a first step, to define what a built-up urban area is and to put that definition in regulation or in legislation. And it was felt that that would be a very complex, a very technical thing to do and would take a lot of time. What it was decided was a better approach was to go down the local authority route, which is the approach that has been taken. So effectively, it will be a matter for local authorities to change via bylaws and by a decision of the local councillors to change local authority to change 50 to identify. Built-up urban areas, the roads that have 50 kilometres an hour, and to reduce those down to 30 kilometres an hour.
Thank you. And could it be a suggestion that I know that there is a lot of pushback from this, and that some county councils are not going to do this. That it won't be. I suppose it won't be implemented. Like the first phase, which is fantastic and it's really welcome. But could it be? And I know this group have suggested this, that they introduce special speed limits. That it would be that'd be the bylaw within the county councils, that the default would be that it would go down to 30 kilometres, but this would be the bylaw that county councils can apply to have special speed limits within certain conditions that you're saying yourself, within if there is disputes about what is an urban area or not, that it would be the other way around, that the default would be 30 kilometres.
I don't think that would be possible because that level of definition isn't there existing, so there will have to be a lot of work to define what roads will be affected. So the decision has been made to go with the approach of leaving this to the local authority process, albeit the department will be issuing very shortly a circular to the local authority chief executives, and the department has also updated the guidelines for local authorities on speed limits to help them make those decision-making processes. So and
there probably is conditions to have amendments within the Road Traffic Act, though. Do you know that could be possible within the Road Traffic Act itself? To change it, that it would be the default, like for phase one, that phase two would be the same.
But I think that would require more change of primary legislation, and that would take time to do. So we believe that the local authorities are the not as quick as people might like, but we believe the local authority route is the quickest, most efficient way to do this at the moment. And I would just very finally say, I would also say that the department will be to encourage, I suppose, local authorities to make those decisions in a prompt manner. The department will be providing funding to support those changes, but that funding will be linked to it being implemented in a coordinated way and within certain timeframes.
There's a lot, but there is a lot of disappointment, and and I'm sure you've heard this yourself. I know that there was a representative from Mr. Kenny's office at it, that there's a lot of disappointment, because we know that, there is overwhelming evidence that if speed limits reduce, like I'm just looking at some of the evidence that we're giving here, if pedestrians are hit by a car at 30 kilometres per hour, 1 in 10 will die. At 50 kilometres, 5 in 10. At 60 kilometres, 9 in 10. So that is a massive difference between 30 kilometres and 6 kilometres.